We have never seen a prospect say this before, as top 2025 draft prospect James Hagens makes some controversial comments as we're heading in to this 2025 NHL draft about the New York Islanders, and with new GM Matthew Darche making an impression early, we have to discuss what James Hagens said about the New York Islanders in particular and why it has a lot of fans and even some media in a bit of a frenzy right now. We have to dive into James Hagens as a prospect, what this draft looks like, and the implications this has on his future NHL team. All of that coming up on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But just a quick reminder, everyone, 90% of you almost are still not subscribed. We have daily NHL news videos. Hit the free button down below if you haven't already. This is the spot to be. Mark, let's just take a look at the draft right now. Look, this draft, it's pretty top heavy. I mean, there's some good prospects at the top. Starts to fall off in the middle of the first round. I mean, Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa are the headliners this year. There's no doubt about that. Schaefer is looking like the likely first overall pick from the New York Islanders, though we'll get into some other stuff in a second. Michael Misa, of course, that 134 point, almost a goal per game season in the OHL is amazing as well. But there's one name here in James Hagens that's fifth here on Tankathon. You can see him anywhere, like maybe even a bit higher, maybe even a bit lower, as low as 8 or 9. But he is a fantastic player, Mark. I mean, just a quick reminder on what James Hagens is, what he brings. Team USA head coach David Carl said his vision, his skating, his sense, his puck handling, it's all so high end. You imagine him at 190 pounds, and he'll be scary good. And honestly, that's true, Mark. I mean, before we get into exactly what he said about the Islanders, of course, the Long Island native himself, we have to talk about James Hagens as a prospect. I mean, to me, there's a real world he can go pretty high in this draft, though maybe not as high as we're going to talk about in a minute, but I really, really, really like this prospect.
I mean, the biggest thing is we see a point per game in the Hockey East this past season. We've seen going into this year, he was ranked in the top in the draft, even as far as number one at some rankings. But the big thing with James Hagen, he seems like he has everything in the skill set to come in as a legitimate NHL player and an elite talent in a couple of years. He's fallen in the draft quite a bit. We've seen Schaefer and Misa really skyrocket up if you want to pull it up again. I mean, Misa's 134 points. It's hard to top. But with James Hagen right now, this is a guy that's very controversial in this pick. You see him as high as 3 and all the way down to 8. There's not a lot of people that can pinpoint exactly where he's going to go, Josh. But regardless of that, he will be an elite talent in the NHL, and the team that gets him will be getting a phenomenal player.
Yeah, you sure hope so. I mean, again, he's the smallest of these potential top 5, 6 overall picks. He's 5'11". He's, again, not at that 190 pounds like David Carl said he'd hopefully get to. Because, again, you imagine him there where he's a bit stronger. He can fend himself off a little bit better. Hey, that's great. But even, like, there's other things, too. Like, Hagens has been a popular guy, according to Cam Robinson, among the lottery team. 16 interviews, has dinner dates with the Islanders and Mammoth so far. 4 of the top 5 drafting teams have either dined with or requested additional time with him. So like you said, he is a star talent. He's going to go very high in this draft, but the question is where. Now, from the moment the New York Islanders got the number 1 overall pick, Mark, there have been talks about James Hagens because, again, he's from Long Island. He is an Islanders fan. We've known that from the start. But we're like, he was number 1 at some points, like last year. But throughout the year, he fell down the rankings. He maybe didn't start as fast as people would have wanted him to at Boston College, despite having an unbelievable year with the USHL last year. But it's his recent comments, Mark, that have some people in a bit of a frenzy. He straight up said, I want to be able to win a Stanley Cup as an Islander. You never hear prospects say this kind of thing, and it's quite controversial. We go to the full quote here. I want to be able to win a Stanley Cup as an Islander. The last time I think they raised the cup, my dad was a little kid, and it meant a lot to my family, to the people of Long Island, to everyone that supports the team. I'd love to be able to bring the Stanley Cup home and raise it one day on the island. And normally, Mark, like, obviously you'd hear prospects say, I'd love to go number 1. I'd love to go to this team that I'm linked to, whatever. But, like, even if this is taken out of context or not, because it's kind of not. This is, like, directly, he's an Islanders fan. It makes sense that he'd want to win as an Islander. Does this, like, raise any red flags in your head about if another team wants to take him? Wouldn't that seed a little bit of doubt in another team's head as to his long-term future with them if he's talking so much about the Islanders? Or do you think this is just a kid being a fan?
Well, I mean, the big thing is you see a lot of players and Islander fans. I'm sorry, plug yours. John Tavares left the Islanders to join the Toronto Maple Leafs. He came out and said this was his dream, but he did not say that going into the draft before being picked by the Islanders. The big thing with this is if you take him at pick 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, wherever it is, The big thing is you have the worry in the back of your mind when he walks into UFA, when he finally hits free agency, what is stopping him from going to his childhood team, the team he wants to lift a Stanley Cup with, the team that he currently cheers for, as what he said. This is going to leave a lot of doubt. And Josh, it's a big thing. And I'm not going to say he's going to slide down. But in your mind, if you're using a top 5 pick, if we're going to see the Mammoth, if we're going to see Nashville, even Chicago, look at this guy. Do you want to waste a pick on this? And it's not a waste. You're getting Hagens. He's going to be in his prime during this as well. But would you use a pick if you know this guy's going to end up just walking east to the Islanders in the 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it takes for him to get there? Because I think all signs are pointing he will be an Islander someday.
I mean, he very well could be. And it's really hard to tell, when you're talking about an 18-and-a-half-year-old, talking about the team that he supported his whole life. Like, a lot of me is saying, like, listen, he's just an Isles fan. He would love to go back home. Just like, we'd want to play for our childhood teams, whatever, right? I get that. I just think the timing of it is not great, right? And do I genuinely think that he'll force his way out of another NHL team? I don't necessarily think so. I think we like to think people will do it. Now, it does happen. People will leave, like you said, John Tavares, people leave for their hometown teams if given the chance at times, because why wouldn't you if they're willing to offer you a lot of money? And with the Islanders, again, going into, who knows? This is a semi-retool rebuild. We'll see what GM Matthew Darsh, what his long-term plans are for the team. But with the number 1 pick, you can get a guy like Schaefer, right? And I think as well, like, I think the Islanders are probably discussing this, but this might put some pressure on the Islanders as well. To answer your question, though, I would still pick him no matter what. Like, again, I'm sure he has good relationships with his teams. I'm sure he's not going into the national meeting saying, listen, I'm going to leave for New York. But, maybe it would put a little bit of seeded doubt in your mind. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that down below. Would you be worried? I tend to lean on the side of no. Like, again, 18-and-a-half-year-old, he loves the Islanders. But you always have that thing in the back of your mind. And it's, it's weird because the Islanders, like you said, were on the other side of this in the past. But Mark, to circle back to New York one last time here, to take it from a different frame of the New York Islanders having that number 1 overall pick. And, there are Islanders fans who are like, no, just pick Schaefer or Misa. But there's also Islanders fans saying, bring him home. Do you think the new front office feels any kind of pressure to pick the hometown kid? Now, I know Matthew Darsh, he's got to go and he's got to make his impression. He's an NHL GM now, I believe, for the first time, right? So he's got to do something good here. I think he's going to pick best player available. All signs are indicating that it's going to be Matthew Schaefer, but I do wonder if some of this discourse is playing into the decision.
The big thing is if you didn't have the first overall, the second overall pick, sure, go out and take James Hagens. But when you have Schaefer and Misa as your options, you have to take these guys. You take best available. The number 1 pick is for the best available. Don't slide down unless you get an offer where you're getting an elite player, a draft pick that can take Hagens and something else where it's an overpayment. I think you have to go out and get Schaefer or Misa, one of these guys. Either or are going to impact your franchise tremendously when you're looking at these guys. But the big thing is you could look at this in the sense, and I don't want to talk about other teams too much. This is an Islanders at this point. But the big thing is you're looking out west at the Vancouver Canucks, who have Quinn Hughes, who wants to play with his brothers. Reports are saying he may walk to New Jersey. If you're the Islanders, do you just take Schaefer and Misa and say, hey, listen, in 5 or 6 years, why don't we just try to poach this guy from the other team? Or maybe we make an offer after the draft with players or whatever it takes to bring him in as well. Trading for that pick's going to be hard, but listen, if they have the leverage, it's a possibility there.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting take as well. Just take the best player available, and when in your meeting with James Hagens, just say, hey, we'd love for you to be an Islander one day, but you're not our pick at number 1. We'd love to bring you in some other time. I don't know if that's tampering, probably not. I'm sure they could just say, listen, we would love to have you on our team. Can't guarantee you at number 1, but we would love to have you, So there could be some interesting stuff going on here. And look, I know Gary Bettman, he's probably looking at this like, you don't love to hear these comments. Again, he's just a fan, and I don't necessarily think there's anything inherently wrong with it. I just think that at this time of year, with the new front office, the Islanders having the number 1 pick, it's a bit of a strange situation. But we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below, because I can't remember the last time I heard a prospect be as open and willing to say how much he wants to play for a specific team that has a high draft pick. But leave your thoughts on all that down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Mark Pye. We'll catch you in the next one.